The year is 2008. Foo Fighters Live at Wembley DVD has been released, and in another part of the world, 16-year-old me is amazed at the sight of Dave Grohl leading his band in front of a sold-out crowd of 80,000 people, wielding his signature Gibson DG-335 guitar in Pelham blue. Now, back in 2008, I was just a young budding fan of the Foo Fighters. It wasn't until I finally saw the band live in 2011 that it spiraled into a full-on obsession.
I'm watching you, mother.
And of course, at that concert in 2011, again, Dave was playing his trusty Gibson DG-335, which at this point had become synonymous with his onstage image. Now, from the moment I first saw this guitar back in 2008, I thought it was an absolutely gorgeous instrument. I mean, I loved that it was a big hollow body guitar, I loved the color, and I especially liked the unique 6-in-a-line Firebird style headstock. It wasn't until years later that I learned that this was actually based on a Trini Lopez model, which was an artist's signature guitar from all the way back in the 60s. David acquired one of these Trini Lopez guitars back in the 90s when he was touring with Nirvana, and it became the guitar that he used to record nearly every Foo Fighters album since. When Gibson approached him in 2007 about creating his own signature guitar, he borrowed a lot of the appointments from the Trini Lopez to create his own model. Now let's take a quick detour and talk about the history of the DG-335. There have been 2 runs of this guitar produced by Gibson. The first was issued in 2007 and was comprised of 200 units in Pelham blue and 100 in an ebony finish. In 2007, I was a broke teenager, so there was no way I was going to be able to afford one of these guitars when they were brand new. In 2014, Gibson reissued the guitar with another 200 units in Pelham blue and this time 400 in a metallic gold finish. Unfortunately, the price for these also went up, and as a still broke 22-year-old, my chances of buying a new Gibson DG-335 were effectively zero. These days, the only chance someone has of finding one of these guitars is on the used market, and whenever they do show up, the asking prices are shocking. I mean, this is like new car money. This is silly money to spend on a guitar. Still, I was obsessed with the DG-335, so I, like many others, wound up on the black market of guitars and bought myself a Chinese copy. This guitar was very cheap, but it had decent enough wood, and more importantly, it had the look. So I took it upon myself to strip all the parts off and replace them with genuine Gibson components. Pickups, pots, switch, the whole 9 yards. I've made a video about this guitar. If you want to learn more, you can check it out on my page, but these days, it is the main onstage guitar I use in my Foo Fighters tribute band. That's right, I am a mega nerd, and I wear it proudly. I am so obsessed with the Foo Fighters, I'm starting to look like one. I've participated for years in online forums, fan groups, and basically any pocket of the internet that's discussing the Foo Fighters, and specifically their guitars. I swear this isn't meant to be a humble brag, but if you Google search DG-335, a picture of my face shows up on page 1 of the image results. Yikes. So for years, the Foo Fighters guitar community and I have been begging and pleading Gibson and Epiphone for another run of these guitars that we can finally actually afford. And as of 2024, our prayers have finally been answered. Epiphone has finally graced us with the DG-335 Dave Grohl signature guitar in glorious Pelham blue. Now wait a minute, that color look a little bit off? Never mind, I'm sure it's just the camera angle. That's right, we're finally getting the Epiphone DG-3... $12.99. That's kind of expensive. The good news here is that they've gone all out with this model. Yes, there's been a lot of belly aching on the internet from guys who are like, $12.99 is way too much to spend on an Epiphone. And they're kind of right. I mean, that's kind of big money for Gibson's little brother brand. But hey, at least they're giving us the Gibson Burstbucker 2 and 3 pickups, just like Dave's signature model. And they've upgraded all the pots and all the caps and all the hardware and everything. And they're giving us a hard shell case. So at the very least, the price seems logical. Epiphone knows what they have here. They know people are obsessed with this guitar, and they know they're gonna sell a ton of them. Now, since I'm so plugged into the Foo Fighters guitar community, the first day these were announced, I received a tidal wave of messages from people asking me if I was gonna get one. And unfortunately, on day 1 of release, I wasn't in a position where I could throw down $1,300 bucks on a brand new guitar, so I wasn't able to get one of the first wave. And of course, they all sold out immediately, which is to be expected. So for the past few weeks, I have been searching just about every day on all of the online music retailers trying to find somebody who's got one of these back in stock, until I saw this. Dave's Guitar Shop in La Crosse, Wisconsin is probably my favorite guitar store. It's about a 3-hour drive away from me, but I try and make the trip at least once a year. They've got an incredible inventory, the guys are really easy to work with, and it's just a great store. So I called them up, asked them to hold it for me while I made the trek up, and decided to go up and snag one of these for myself. I'm also bringing along my Chinese copy so we can do a little comparison in the store and see how they compare to each other. Cue the travel montage. So we've arrived at Dave's Guitars, and first things first, let's just take a stroll around the store and look at the amazing selection of guitars they have here. After taking an initial lap around the store, I found the DG and sat down to test it out and compare it to my copy. The first thing I noticed right away is the color. Epiphone seems to be having a really hard time getting the Pelham blue color just right, and in fairness to them, it is a really difficult color to match. The way the metallic flake catches the light in different angles and different lighting, it can look a variety of different shades of blue. But I was noticing a trend in all the YouTube demo videos I was watching of this, that they all appeared to be really silver. And I was kind of hoping that it was just like a camera angle trick or the lighting was bad or something like that. But in person, I was kind of disappointed that like it looked even more silver than it did online in the photos. Compared to my guitar at least, which I have to say matches the Pelham blue of my Gibson Firebird Studio a lot better. It's not perfect, but it has a lot more of the deep, vibrant blue color than the Epiphone did. There were a few things I liked about this guitar. First of all, the neck is enormous,
First fret neck,
which is great for me because I'm a big guy with big hands and I like big guitar necks. Compared to my guitar, again, which has a pretty skinny neck, it's not bad, but I just like a thicker 50s style guitar neck. The pickups sound fine, but I have the exact same pickups and electronics in my copy again, so I didn't notice much of a difference between the two when they were plugged in. Now the setup wasn't great, which I know is something that I can adjust myself, but stuff like the nut slots didn't seem like they were cut low enough, so the strings were kind of high down on the first frets. And also, the design of the headstock was a little weird, and as the strings traveled through the slot and the nut, they kind of bent at an angle towards the tuners. And I've been hearing a lot of horror stories about people who have ordered these guitars and received them with broken headstocks or cracks along the neck. And I have to wonder if part of that is based on the extra tension of the strings pulling the nut to one side. Just as a final comparison, Dave's also had a Gibson Trini Lopez reissue in Pelham Blue, and we compared all three guitars together, and you could just see how much the color varies between these guitars. The Gibson, my copy in the middle, and the Epiphone Dave Grohl on the far right, and it just looks so silver. So with all this in mind, I sat there playing it, and I tried to decide whether or not this was so much better than the copy I already had that I needed to buy it, and I didn't think so. And let me stop here and address this. I know not everybody out there has one of these copies that they have meticulously gone through and replaced all the parts on and have a really nice setup guitar and everything. And I also know that we should be supporting Epiphone and the officially sanctioned models and not supporting these fake counterfeiters and everything. There's a ton of people out there that are still really excited about this guitar and are gonna go out and order it, and they're going to absolutely love it. Personally though, as somebody who obsesses over the tiniest, most minuscule details, I knew some of these things were just gonna get under my skin. For what this was, and for what I had, it just didn't impress me enough to pull the trigger. Before we left Dave's though, we have one more thing we gotta go check out. A visit to Dave's Guitar Shop is not complete unless you go upstairs and view his personal private collection. This guy, Dave Rogers, has been going to guitar shows and conventions for decades, and his guitar collection is one of the most incredible things I have ever seen as a guitar player, and it's all on public display. You could just go upstairs after you're done shopping and just take a look at the floor-to-ceiling, wall-to-wall coverage of insanely rare vintage guitars that he has. take a minute and try and tally up what a dozen of these guitars are worth, and your head starts spinning. It's crazy. He has a Telecaster from every single year since its inception. He has a Stratocaster from every single year since its inception. Same with a Les Paul. He's got two 1960 Les Paul standards. He's got a 1959 Gibson Explorer and Flying V. It's incredible. This place is amazing, and I encourage everyone to make the trip up there at least once. So with that, I packed up my trusty cheapo and we hit the road. On the drive home, I couldn't help feeling a little empty-handed. I mean, I was really expecting to go up there and pick up one of these Epiphone guitars for myself and take it home and really put it through its paces and do a full-on review compared to my copy. But after playing it in the store, I just wasn't blown away as much as I hoped I would be. And I left feeling like it was maybe a little overhyped. And unfortunately, that's kind of where this review video ends. Except... oh my God. Okay, nobody freak out. This is the real thing. I have a friend named Ron, who's a guitar player and also a big Foo Fighters fan, and he has an incredible guitar collection. We talk guitars and Foo Fighters a lot, and he owns this Gibson DG-335 in Pelham Blue. He also owns one of the gold ones too, so this guy has some pretty sweet guitars. But we talk about him a lot, and I've told him about my copy. I was actually working at a guitar store when he bought this new, and he asked me to do a setup on it when he got it. So the first opportunity I ever had to hold one of these guitars was the specific one when he first got it years ago. So I texted him when I was heading up to Wisconsin and said, hey, I'm going up to pick up one of these Epiphone guitars. I would love it if we could sit down and do a shootout between all three and compare the Epiphone to my copy and to the real Gibson. And he said, sounds great, I'm game. Then I sent him another text and said, hey, I didn't really vibe with that Epiphone that much. I decided not to buy it. He said, that's okay. Why don't you go ahead and borrow my Gibson DG-335 and do your review video and test it out, jam on it a little bit, and let me know what you think. So before we go any further, I just want to say thank you so much to Ron for allowing me to test this out and document it in my studio. People talk about dream guitars a lot, right? If there's an artist that you really admire their guitar or a specific model that you've always wanted for years, I don't think a single guitar embodies that concept for me more than the DG-335. I mean, ever since I saw the Foo Fighters back in 2011, and even before then when I saw the Live at Wembley DVD, this guitar has been seared into my brain for years and years and years. And it's not often that you create such a lofty idea of a guitar or anything in your mind, and then when you finally sit down, it lives up to all that hype you've created for it. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case for the Epiphone. But this guitar, this lives up to the hype. This thing is amazing. I always thought, hey, with the copy, I'll buy a cheapo guitar, I'll put really nice Gibson parts and humbuckers and everything in it, it'll be just as good as the real thing. Not even close. This guitar, it blows away all my expectations, which were already extremely high. First off, he's kept this thing in immaculate condition. I mean, it really, really is just beautiful. The playability is perfect. It's got such a snappy, tight response with the strings. I mean, just playing rock riffs on this just makes sense. It's got the big chunky neck that the Epiphone does, which again, I really love. And the nitrocellulose lacquer is different than the polyurethane finish that the Epiphones use, so it just feels nicer. Anybody who's played a Gibson and compared it to the feeling of an Epiphone knows that the nitro finish just feels a little smoother, doesn't feel as plasticky, and just in the hands you can tell this is a really nice guitar. So I know people are gonna ask, is it worth $15,000? Well, No, but those are the collector's prices, right? That's what collectors are asking for the guitars. If you ask me, is this worth the $7,000 that it was worth new? I would say, yeah, totally. I mean, this is an amazing guitar. It looks great, plays incredible, and sounds amazing. I'm gonna quit yapping about this. We're gonna plug it in, we're gonna do some sound demos, and I'll give some final thoughts. But yeah, this is really exciting to finally get my hands on one and try it out. Okay, final thoughts. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I will own a Gibson Dave Grohl model. I'm manifesting this. I'm putting it out there in the universe. That guitar has always been and will always be my dream guitar. This experience has shown me so much, and admittedly this video turned out way differently than I had initially intended it to. Originally this was going to be just another gear review of the new Epiphone Dave Grohl model. I'm glad I got the chance to go test one out at the store and come to the conclusion that it really just wasn't for me. There were some things that I really liked about it, and I still think there's a lot of people out there who are gonna get one of those and they're gonna absolutely love it. But for me, Compared to the copy that I already have, it didn't do it for me enough to justify the purchase. I'm extremely grateful, however, for the opportunity that my friend offered me to really get familiar with one of the actual Gibson Dave Grohl models, and to say that it was the most fun that I've had playing a guitar in a long time is an understatement. I am somebody who has been very, very fortunate to own some really, really cool guitars over the years. And through working in music stores and just having lots of musician friends with cool guitars, I've had the opportunity to play some really, really amazing stuff. So it kind of takes a lot to impress me. The Gibson Dave Grohl just blew me away. And I think it speaks to the notion that we as guitar players often let the psychology of guitars dictate and influence our perception of them. More so than just the sound, or even just the specs, like the pickups or the hardware, anything like that. It's the feel and it's the inspiration that sitting down with a guitar like that gives you as a musician. It just makes you want to play it more and more and more and more. And I think that's really something that's important that we should hold on to. It's an iconic guitar that I have been lusting over for years and years and years. And in the immortal words of Wayne Campbell,
it will be mine. Oh yes, it will be mine.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. If you have made it this far, just subscribe already. What the hell? YouTube is where I host a lot more of my long form super nerdy content. I'm doing a lot of stuff over on TikTok. We got a lot of friends hanging out over there. It's a lot of fun, a little bit more informal short form videos and stuff. This is where I get nerdy and I do these deep dives, and I don't post quite as frequently as I do on the other platforms, but I really enjoy the opportunity to really dive deep and do some cool editing and production stuff with these. So I really appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next one. I hope you found this as enjoyable as I did making it. See ya.